Welcome, John Jackson Miller, to Creator in Conversation. How are you today?
I'm glad to be here.
Fantastic. So I'm really excited to talk with you today because I've totally enjoyed Batman Resurrection, and then the sequel has just come out as well, Batman
Ben.
Revolution, which has been fantastic. And also, before I forget, Forbidden Planet Dublin have just got their order in as well, and
Oh,
Hodges and Figgis as well in Dublin City Centre. So if anyone wants to check it out, the Audible is available.
yeah.
But if you want to get the physical copy as well, Hodges and Figgis and Forbidden Planet Dublin currently have it in stock. So it was awesome. How did this opportunity come about for you to revisit Tim Burton's Batman?
Well, I should say that going back to the very beginning, I saw the first Tim Burton Batman movie in the theater in the United States 12 times between 1989 and 1990, twice in one day at some point. And so it was something that I had written about for years. I was working for publisher that did magazines and books about comics, and so I did several articles about the movie and even about the soundtrack by Prince. And what happened is, as I moved into the second part of my career, which is not writing about the comics but writing them, and then writing novels. I worked my way through. I've written a lot of things for Star Wars. I've written a lot of novels for Star Trek. I had come back to Random House to do a novel for Star Wars called The Living Force, which was set 1 year before The Phantom Menace. That came out in 2024. And it was while I was working on that my editor, Tom Holler, said, you saw the Batman movie in the theater 12 times, didn't you? And I said, yeah, I still have the ticket stubs. I still have the receipts. And he said, we have this opportunity to do novels tying into the Tim Burton Batman movies, not multiple movies, not all four of the movies that came out in the 90s, but just these two. And I immediately said, yes, I would be happy to do what starts here as a 2-book project. And I said, this is perfect. And it came about in part because there had been a revival of interest in the character in those films. I think they've always been beloved, but it was the case that you had the Michael Keaton Batman showing up, or a version of that Batman showing up in the Flash movie. Earlier than that, we had the Batman '89 comics, which started coming out from DC. These were written by Sam Hamm, who was one of the screenwriters of the film, and drawn by Joe Quinones, who has done many covers for my Star Wars books, Star Wars comics. And those were successful, and that sort of opened the door to us to do fiction. And so I wrote these books, setting them in between Batman and Batman Returns. You get to see the characters that were still alive as of the second movie, and we got to give some explanation as to what happened to some of the characters in between the films. And we got to deal with some of the bigger, I thought at the time when I was watching, some of the bigger issues, like unique to the Tim Burton version of the movies, and not entirely, I think, due to what he wanted. I think it was what the studio wanted. They decided to make the Joker character responsible for the deaths of Bruce Wayne's parents. Well, that being the case, and this is the only version of Batman anywhere where that's the case, the question becomes at the end of that first film, when the Joker is presumably dead, Why does he continue being Batman? Why doesn't he quit? Hasn't he resolved his story arc? And so we got to tangle with that, and we also got to expand sort of the universe of these characters. We get to see what we think a Tim Burton version of Clayface would have been like. We get to see what we think a Tim Burton version of the Riddler could have been like, or at least one that would be consistent with the aesthetic that comes with those two films, because those two films really are their own pocket universe. I think the later two films in the 90s just are stylistically different. The rules for the universe are different. The kinds of stories that they are we know what a Tim Burton movie looks like, and what a Tim Burton character looks like. We have villains in our books that are sort of tragic, but also comedic, somewhere in there. And so the first book, which is Resurrection, came out in October of 2024. It did extremely well. It's still selling in hardcover, and still in print. And for 1 year later, we released Revolution, which is the second book. And both of these novels take place sort of in that first year following the original 1989 movie. I tried to write the books, almost as a thought experiment. What if you could have written tie-in novels in 1990, in 1991, knowing everything that was going to happen in Batman Returns? It would not have been possible because that movie had not been written yet. But things just didn't move that fast. But my hope is that people approaching these films for the first time now, and in fact, I've heard from people who have done this. They will watch Batman the original movie. They've been reading the two novels. They go to the second film, and then they go on to the comics, which are set well after Batman Returns, and which are sort of, we decided that we would kind of have a loose continuity with them. So there are characters from those comics that have shown up in my novels. They do sync up. And if the reader does not want to read the comics, there's absolutely, nothing that they're missing on my end from my books. But if they do choose to consider it all one continuum, they've got even more to come.
No, I was delighted when I came across that in the books. I wasn't expecting to tie over into the comics, and I've been enjoying them as well. And did you have conversations with Sam Hamm at any stage when before I had the
Well,
opportunity to speak with him?
we got a great note from Sam, supportive, with the first book. His work was pretty much done at this point. So I was doing most of my interfacing with the editor at DC, and also with Joe Quinones, because Joe, the artist, we hired him to do promotional images, paintings of the Clayface character in the first case, and for the second book we had him do our version of Riddler, and so all along as the issues of the second Batman '89 comic series were coming out. Even though I'd been provided with the outline and the scripts, I would still get those comics to make sure that everything synced up properly. And I can say that as of at least my book, which is the most recent thing to come out, Revolution, everything does fit.
Yeah, I as a reader, I was very curious because there was one kind of a discrepancy. I was going to say spoilers that I was wondering. I wonder how this ties in. And
well, yeah, well,
perfect.
I don't mind saying this. There's more than one Riddler, and we figured out how to deal with this. And it was something where that was a change that I sort of made on the fly, as we were going, how we were actually going to handle that. and I realized, okay, there's just perfectly, there's a lot of room here. I can deal with this. There's very little, story wise. Certainly after 20 years of writing tie-ins, there's there are very few plot corners that I can't figure out. There was a famous soap opera television show in America in the 1980s called Dallas, and they killed one of the main characters, and the following season was a disaster, and they were looking for something to do, and so they decided to just make the entire season a dream. And I thought about it, and I said, in less than a minute and a half, I could figure out how to actually bring that character back to life without ruining everything that had come in the previous year. But I think they felt it was ruined anyway, so they went ahead and did it. But it made it kind of a laughing stock when it happened, and people still refer to that moment. And I look at it and say, this is something where, in comics, Len Wein, who is the co-creator of Wolverine, he along, I think, with Dave Cockrum, he had a rule. He said, in his law was, in comics, no one is ever dead unless you can see the body, and usually not even then. There's always a way to write around it, and and particularly in soap operas, they had 30 years of experience in bringing characters back from the dead, so they should have been able to find a better way. That stuff went back to the radio days.
It's good. And even in Resurrection, it was actually great to read the on the edge of the sea kind of like twists and turns that was happening
Oh
of
yeah,
would the joke. It was really great because going in, you again, you
yeah.
won't give away twists or turns to it, but I was like, I'm pretty sure we all know how the story's going to end, but yeah, there's unexpected turns there, and it was
Yeah.
really very deftly excellent done. And I noticed some of the material, like certain gadgetry and the
Yes.
science of the Joker, were these ideas that have been running around your head since first seeing the film,
Oh
or did you
yes.
only
Oh
really
yes.
reflect? Oh yeah, yeah. So this,
Oh yes. Again, I mentioned I saw the movie in college. I was actually editing my college newspaper at the University of Tennessee, and so I wrote one review the day after the movie came out, and I wrote that this movie had just redeemed comics in the popular culture, not just Batman but comics. I do consider it the most important comic book movie ever made for helping to teach people that comics could be serious. But I wrote a second review about a month later, after I'd seen the movie 10 more times. And by that point, I had plot questions. There are a number of plot holes. There are a number of things that you just don't quite make sense. How was the Batwing shot down? And various other things. And every one of these things, I said, well, now I know how I would bring the Joker back if I wanted to. I know how I know the reason that my what they call my head canon, how I know my explanation for why the Batwing was able to be shot down with one bullet from a strange gun. And I never thought I would put that to use. I in fact wrote, anybody who read a column I wrote in Comics Buyer's Guide for the 10th anniversary of the movie in 1999 would have found there spoilers for what I eventually did 25 years later, because I had this notion of, well, here's how I would do this if I ever got to do it. And one of the fun things is that we also got a lot of support on this novel from Michael Uslan, who is the executive producer of the Batman movies. He's really the hero of the story of Batman in the movies, because he made sure these movies got made, and that the 1989 movie was very serious. And he did both of our signings at New York Comic Con in October this year, along with me, signing the first copies of Revolution. And he said to me at the time, thank you for fixing some of the problems with the movie. because because again, nobody intends to have a continuity error or something strange like that, but there's just always things that change in the editing room. And I came away with questions that I provided my answers.
No, it's Michael's books, The Boy Who Loved Batman and Batman's Batman, have been great just to hear about the whole journey and odyssey to get it made and the struggles. Highly recommended to anyone
Yeah.
listening wants to hear the whole behind the scenes onto it. I was delighted at the end of Resurrection to see that Revolution was coming because it was already there at the end of the book to say coming. That was fantastic. Because usually it's usually other series you could be waiting a while
Oh
or
yeah.
wondering, but
That book
is
was
the
already underway. That book was
that
already underway. So
that's fantastic. And is there any early preliminary talks of more possibly, or does the dust have to settle a little bit more?
if I were ready to announce something in the second book, I would have been announcing it. The thing is, Tim Burton directed two movies,
Mhm.
so we plan to do two books. They've done two graphic novels.
Mhm.
I will say that we're always working. I'm always writing. My passport is still valid for the DC universe. And when there is something to say that we're allowed to say, we'll say. But Batman is never gone for long.
Awesome.
But I again really appreciated the fact that we had the deal for the second book,
Mhm.
right from the start. So I was able to embed the Riddler
Yeah.
very deeply in book one. I was able to have plot elements relevant to the second book, in the first book, and I think that was important because I wanted to establish that even though Batman had just come on the scene in weeks before that first movie, and he isn't publicly known until during the first movie. I wanted to toy with the idea that, well, maybe he wasn't the first person doing this sort of thing. And of course, Gotham City has a lot of characters doing this and that and the other thing in the meantime. And so we're able to, in the first book, tease elements that are in the second book. Max Schreck has an appearance in the first book, quite a bit more in the second book. And we are able also at the same time to get into what happened to Vicky Vale, what happened to Alexander Knox, what happened to some of these other characters. Our role as writers of tie-in fiction is not to just connect all the dots and tie off all the loose, plot ends, or to fix things even. But if we can do that on the way to an interesting story, more's the better.
Fantastic. And would you be ever be interested in exploring more of the DC properties, film franchise like a Superman 78? I know they've done tie-in comics already. Would that be anything that you would like? I'm not asking for anything
Yeah,
like
yeah,
not
yeah.
knowing things, so just
Well, I had actually been away from superheroes for almost 20 years. I When I got my start professionally, Crimson Dynamo and Iron Man at Marvel. I wrote Iron Man for a year. I made him Secretary of Defense, so that was a precursor to a lot of the later plots in the late 2000s.
Mhm.
And What happened is, at the end of my tenure on that, I went over to the folks at Star Wars, at Dark Horse Comics, and then Star Wars kept me busy, for a decade plus. So I have been in outer space, once you add Star Trek in there, for a very long time, and so getting to actually do stories set on Earth in the somewhat close to the present day. I had to do all kinds of research that I haven't had to do in a long time. We're not just talking about reading the comic books, which I happen to have, but also, I would need over the course of the Batman novels to know things about autopsies, to know things about how traffic signals work in the United States, how what because we're setting these books in a mythical hybrid of 1939 and 1989. I had to make sure that all of my technology was appropriate, with the exception of Batman's, he's always a little ahead of everybody else. But that was fun and entertaining for me. It was a different kind of thing. It was not a sort of a thing where it gets to at a certain point when you've been working with a franchise for a long time, where it's like, well, what have we not explored yet? I had done 8 Star Trek novels in a row, and I was doing some fairly deep dives. My most recent Star Trek novel, which was the first Strange New Worlds novel called The High Country. There's a major connection to an episode of Enterprise, which again, was not going to be the first thing that I was going to explore. I didn't get to that until book 8. And so, but this is a case where, I 2 books in Gotham City, that's just, that's a small number compared to the number of books that are out there.
Oh, that's amazing. And with your Star Wars work, Kenobi is all-time favorite for me. Like it's such, I highly recommend to everyone, just not even for being Star Wars, just as a
Yeah.
novel. It's such a tight, good, solid paced story. It's
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. What was the experience like for you in writing Kenobi? Was this again something that was in your head canon from watching the
Yeah.
films? Or
Well, I first of all, I appreciate what you said. I just I was on social media about a week ago saying that the best thing we could possibly hear. It always sounds like a backhanded compliment. This isn't just a good Star Wars, Star Trek, whatever novel. It's a good novel, but that's what we're working for. So that's good. No, the idea behind Kenobi actually started 20 years ago this year. It was the fall of 2006. Dark Horse were looking at having me do a original graphic novel for 2007, which would have been the 30th anniversary of Star Wars and the 20th anniversary of Dark Horse Comics. And we had discussed various possible things. Westerns came up, and just one day, and this was when I was still at my day job, but I didn't have anything to do that summer, so I it was in my office, and I just typed out about 5 paragraphs in an email called the Ben Kenobi Western. And the idea was to borrow from a fairly famous trope, a fairly famous movie and novel in before that, which was called Shane. And that's about the gunfighter, the retired gunfighter with a past who wanders into the desert, wanders into town, trying to escape his past, trying to hide who he was, and as soon as he reveals who he is, he has to move on. Well, the notion was, well, let's do a story that is told mostly from the points of view of the other people that he meets, and what they think of him. And when we get anything with him, it's going to be limited to meditations, but everything is going to be from the viewpoint of other people. The general public, the reader already knows about the Empire. The reader already knows about Order 66 and all these other things. Nobody on Tatooine does. Nobody on Tatooine has any idea about this. So I thought, well, let's do a story coming from their point of view and what it's like to live in this period, and what it would be like for him to try to settle down in a place that he, when we see Owen in the movie, he's disdainful of Tatooine. He doesn't think that this is a place that they should go to at all. And so I proposed this. We went back and forth with more outlines. The outline got to about 50 pages long, and it was never going to fit in a comic book. It was never going to fit in a graphic novel. And I got the opportunity instead to write the adaptation of the Indiana Jones film that came out in 2008, the Crystal Skull. And so we shelved the idea, we tabled it, and it didn't come up again until after I had written my first novel for Random House, which was the Star Wars Knight Errant book, a book which is now sort of getting a second life because it is back in print, and also the graphic novels are back in print from Marvel, and so that's wonderful. But we wanted to have a novel focusing on an original movie character, one of the characters for the original movies, and I happen to have this ready-made story, and that's how it happened. And so that novel came out in 2013 in August. I was actually in a panic for most of it because in I think it was October of 2012, that was when Disney had bought Star Wars, and Mr. McGregor was very, very vocal about wanting to do a film or something, and I was like, okay, this could end up preventing me from having this book come out, because we're certainly nowhere near the point about talking about adapting anything. That's not going to happen. And so as it happened, we were able to get the book out before they ended up sort of declaring that entire part of the continuity legends, which happened with my very next novel, which was called A New Dawn a year later. But one of the things about that novel and that experience that has been refreshing is that when the TV series came out, Ellen did an interview talking. He's actually did two different interviews talking about the novel and having read it and enjoyed it and feeling that it added something. It just wasn't something that they could do for that show at that time because the story is an arrival story. But nothing that they did. The director Deborah Chow, she also read the book. They did nothing that conflicted with the novel, and in fact, the TV series aligns with a fairly major plot point that we decided on in that book, having to do with Qui-Gon Jinn. And so I was happy about how that turned out.
Oh, it's amazing. And again, definitely anyone who can check out Kenobi, you 100% check it out. It's a great, great novel. And with regards to just I suppose your production pipeline, I wanted to put it in a way, your
Yeah,
process when working on IPs. You mentioned like when you were working on Batman, there's a lot of research that went into technology, and there's also historical elements as well. I noticed particularly
yeah.
with Revolution, there was kind of a hint of
Oh
the
yes.
historical drama to it. How do you manage all of this? Do you have like so like do you have to go first? Okay, take the meetings with the IP holders,
Yeah.
then do up a draft, and then even when you draft, are you a whiteboard guy? Or do you type just cold? What's
Well,
the chaos behind the machine?
okay. Well, first of all, the with all the almost everything I've done is in somebody else's universe. I've written one book that I own out of all of the things I've done, and it's not even in print at the moment.
Oh.
Although that's
And what
my
book's
fault.
that? What book's that?
I did a book called Overdraft, which was sort of a Wall Street meets Aliens kind of a thing,
Oh, great.
and this was the same year that Kenobi came out, and I had intended to do more with it, and I didn't get around to it, and I will eventually get it back into print. I just have to actually have time to deal with it. But no, all the other things you have to actually send the the rights holders outlines of what you plan to do, and usually there are conversations beforehand, with the publisher, with the editors, and with the folks at the studio. They may give you some broad guidelines, or detailed guidelines. In the case of the New Dawn novel, which was a prequel to the Rebels TV series, a series which was not out yet. So that was something where they had to give us a lot of information, and sort of restrictions. But otherwise, or in the case of my Star Trek novels, the ones that I wrote tied into the streaming series, I worked with Kirsten Beyer, who was executive producer of Strange New Worlds, co-creator of the Picard series, to sort of select something, a place where I could put my stories, where they wouldn't collide with anything, and where we might actually be able to introduce a character here or there. We introduced a character in my Die Standing novel, for Discovery, that would wind up being the villain in the Section 31 movie. I didn't create the character, but I was told that that character was coming, and we're like, okay, well, here we go. Let's put it in. And so, yes, I'm providing an outline, a detailed outline. Sometimes on a book like Revolution, a 50-page outline, because it takes it takes that much space to be able to explain some of the mechanisms for some of the mysteries. Sort of my big stories, which are sort of Rubik's Cube puzzles, where there are a lot of things to put into place, would be books like my Rogue Elements novel for Star Trek Picard, or in particularly, yes, this Revolution novel, or also the Living Force novel I did for Star Wars, where it was about the Jedi Council, and I had 12 Jedi Council members to track going through this whole thing, and so I had to very definitely put everything out on. I've done the whiteboard thing in the past. I've also done spreadsheets. I usually do the spreadsheets so I know what order the chapters are going to be in. That also tells me sort of how long the book is going to be. And then once that's approved, we go from there, and it sort of adapts. I mean, it is the case that, for example, the historical elements, because there are historical mysteries in Batman Revolution. I wanted to know what those were going in, so those are detailed in that outline. The things having to do with the Revolutionary War, and Gotham City. I had already researched all of that beforehand, with the thought that I don't want to be wasting time doing that when I'm trying to advance actually writing the narrative. What I tend not to do is get into too much detail about action scenes, combat. There's a whole chapter where Batman and a villain are fighting on a fire escape of a building, and so there are all of these devices and events that happen during this fight, and then of course the dialogue. Well, that's not the sort of thing that I would lay out beforehand. That would be something where it would be maybe a paragraph or even a sentence, and then I deal with the combat once I get to the actual book. This can be complicated because, or not complicated. It can be a problem because you're trying to see how much is going to fit in the book, and then you realize, oh, I wrote this one sentence and it's going to take 20 pages to tell this this fight. But that's where the fun comes in for me. I actually, this stage of the process, the outline stage, is the part that I like the least, and it is in part because you start with so many ideas. There's so many things you want to put into the stew. There's so many elements. The people who say, in creative writing class or in English, composition classes or everything, you have to start with a theme, and you have to start with all of these other things. Well, if it works for you, good. But I find these things will actually come out as the book is going on, and you realize, oh, well, this book, Batman Revolution is really a book about parents and children, and how you can protect them too much or protect them not enough, or consequences and all of these things. This is a big part of the theme of that book, and it only really sort of came out as I was writing it and realizing, okay, yeah, well, this scene rings a bell with this scene, which rings a bell with this scene. and it all rhymes. And that's on purpose. I mean, because I as I'm writing the scene, I'm like, okay, yeah, I can make this work that way. That's not something I think that is well done at the stage of plot. The stage of plotting, you're really trying to get the order of events, and will this story fit in the book?
Yeah, oh, excellent, excellent. And it thanks so much for that insight as well, because it's always something which, I'm sure it's you get badgered as a professional writer all the time about like what your process and such, but it is curious to see like what the approach is. And whenever I ask anyone
Yeah,
that question, it's always a different way, which goes to show there's no right or wrong way or set formula. It's kind of, as you were saying, that you
yeah,
discover it as you go along what works best. And when you're working for comics or other media, do you find yourself adapting anything that you would do? So if you're writing for a prose novel, is there something different that you would do if you're writing for a comic apart
yeah,
from the script layer?
yeah. Well, I did comics first, and that's it's like writing a movie script in a lot of ways, or a TV script. You have to be sparse with what you're providing. It's important to actually give the artist the information in not just a specific format, but in a specific order, because you have all these things that you sort of learn over the years. If you're going to mention the three characters in a scene, you want to mention them left to right if you want them to appear left to right. You Because that's kind of the order that they will go into. Or if you want their speech bubbles, if you want their balloons to be left to right, you need to have the characters speak in the order, or be on the page, drawn in the order in which they speak, so you don't have a lot of word balloon arrows, or pointers that are crossing one another, which is something to be avoided. There are lessons that were taught. My editor got his lessons from Joe Orlando, who had been art director at DC. One event per page, or rather, no, one idea per page, one event per panel, and this is, I think, something that is not often followed by beginners, including me when I started. And so these are all things which are designed to help the collaboration. There is no collaboration in a novel except with the reader's mind, and so I have to try to I have to provide all of the material that fills in the canvas. And in my case, I tend to be relatively spare on descriptions of individuals and dress and that sort of thing, unless it's relevant to the plot. Um, I do consider myself somebody who writes immersive prose. Certainly, the Kenobi novel is nothing if not atmospheric. It's about the desert. It's about the people living in the desert and what they're doing. But I'm not the sort of person that's going to spend 2-3 paragraphs, on fabric. And I think to a degree, the characters are known to people already, because I might approach things differently with a character that has not appeared before, one of my characters. But in general, there's no need for me to describe Michael Keaton to anybody. It's more, am I is are his words, is the way that he's thinking matching the way that character seems to think on the screen?
Excellent. And actually, just a point as you were describing that sprung into my own mind with the audio adaptation of Resurrection and
Yeah,
Revolution as well with Will Dameron. He did a
yeah,
great job in that he's not trying to mimic, but he gets the
correct.
essence of the characters as it comes
Yeah,
through. It's very good. Did you have any say
yeah.
or sway in the selection of the audio reader?
Not the reader. I do provide a lot of notes, certainly on pronunciation, but also I will give some thoughts as to how characters should be read. They try to avoid doing things like, well, this character should read like this actor or something like that. And in the case of these books specifically, Will did not try to, as you said, he did not try to do impressions, because that's a different thing. That's a different what happens is all of these actors, and they are actors usually. Robert Petkoff, who reads my Star Trek novels, many of them, he's somebody who is a Broadway actor, and he's able to do 100 different voices for different characters. But what you have to do is you have to find a version of the character that is in your range, because you're going to be living with that character in the studio for hours and hours and hours and hours. You don't want a situation where people are judging the narrative based on how good an impression is. And in particular, with the Batman films, there is absolutely nobody on Earth who does not have their own version of a Jack Nicholson impression or a Christopher Walken impression. And so you don't want somebody judging the book say, oh well, this is a great book, but I wish this or wish that or which or whatever. I think what he does is he finds his characters his own range. I actually think his characters probably rhyme a little bit, or his performance rhymes a little bit more with Batman the Animated Series. Certainly, his Alfred is very much like Ephraim Zimbalist,
Mhm.
and I think also his Batman as well. And is kind of sounds like that series. But again, the idea is every one of these productions sometimes the goal is let's try to match things. Sometimes the goal is not, and I think we found a middle ground here.
Oh, that's excellent. And this year, of course, is the 60th anniversary of Star Trek as well. So, is this going to be a busy year for you in the Star Trek world as well? Are you
uh,
enjoying it as a fan or a bit of both?
Well, I just saw the new logo they came up with for the 60th today. I'm never far from that universe, and that's all I'm going to say at the moment. It is I did that I did for the 50th anniversary. I did a trilogy called Prey, which took a year and a half out of my life, because those books came out sequentially in succeeding months in a 3-month period in 2016. And I didn't write another novel for for 3 years after that, because it was very taxing. But or 2 years. But it's remarkable that it has been a part of the conversation this long. And they're continuing, and we got Starfleet Academy starting just today as we're recording this.
Is that today? Oh my God. I I
Oh
seen
yeah,
the trailer and didn't even realize. Oh, so now I'm
yeah,
watching it afterwards then.
yep, yep,
And so, just to close out as well, obviously you do a lot of conventions and you've been like a fan, you've been involved in the industry, writing and producing as well.
yeah.
Is there any particular advice that you received in your career early on that stayed with you? Or is there any piece of advice you find yourself often providing people who come up to you at these conventions or shows, or aspiring or fans or aspiring creators? Is there something that you think
Yeah,
if anyone's listening, and it's
yeah.
tough becoming a professional writer to break in, what's the any nuggets of wisdom you can offer?
Well, I was a magazine editor and book editor for the first part of my career, so over a decade. And what I always try to do is I try to be the kind of freelancer that I wanted to work with when I was an editor. And that doesn't mean somebody who just follows every order blindly. But I do try to get my work in on time. I do try to not pick fights or over things that are not that important. Um, there are major red lines that might exist in any given project where if you're not able to do this or that or the other thing, it might ruin the story. Or if something is added, it might impact the story. But the idea is to kind of recognize the constraints that the publisher might be under, both commercially or something else, because we're all here trying to sell books. The Kenobi novel, beloved book. I had basically a 45-minute nervous breakdown when I got the first notes back, where the sales team at Random House was desperately concerned that Obi-Wan does not appear until page 60 of the book. And I had always known that might be a problem, but they were in particular concerned about it because this was such a different novel. And I said, okay, well, I have a solution here. I have a story that I was planning on running in Star Wars Insider magazine, which was a prequel story, where he's delivering the baby to Tatooine, and we made that the prologue, and that way the reader gets Obi-Wan immediately. The book opens stronger, and even though it was suggested really by the sales department that I do something to add a scene or something, it didn't mean that they were wrong. And so that has become a very important part of that book. And I just did a completely different story set even earlier for Star Wars Insider magazine. So nothing really changed, except I had to come up with something for that. But again, I try to recognize what they're up against or what they're dealing with or what their concerns are, and because everybody wants the project to work. And then I also, this wasn't something that we were dealing with a lot yet when I was editing, although it was beginning to happen. We didn't have social media at the time, but we did have internet message boards and things. And one of the things that I needed my writers to do was to comport themselves, and to understand that we're representatives of our own work and our own views and everything, but also we're representing the brand. We're representing multiple people and everything. So one of the pieces of advice I had gotten from one of my publishers at the magazine company had been, don't set your backside on fire, and don't go out and make a spectacle if you can help it. And I try to be, at least in my online persona, a welcome presence to as much as I can, because I'm in the business of escape. So as long as everybody's different, everybody uses their platforms for whatever they want to use them for. With me, I'm gonna I'll talk about the worlds that I'm in, and I'll give people a lot of strange TV trivia. But
Amazing. No, thanks so much for sharing that. And if folks want to follow along to keep with the latest for your upcoming projects,
yeah.
just to get those TV tidbit
Oh
trivias,
yeah.
where would be the best to find you online?
Okay. My website is farawaypress.com, where I have essays on most of my early novels and comics, and then there's how to get the later ones. I haven't had time to do the essays for all the later books, but farawaypress.com is also my handle on Blue Sky, and then I am JJM Faraway on Twitter, and then I am John Jackson Miller on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Threads. And then over, I run a comics history website called Comicron, COMICHRON.com. And there are Twitter feeds and even a Patreon for that out there.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, and Comic-Con's like one of the default if anyone's like studying comics or just
Yeah.
fans. It's like it's huge because my own degree is in history. So,
Oh yeah.
but whenever anyone I know anyway aligned academically in comics,
Oh yeah.
definitely your name and Comic-Con comes up. Was that always the mission statement with it? Or was this
Well,
something you wanted to?
the idea was, I was the editor of the trade magazine for the comics industry since 1993,
Mhm.
and I had stepped back from editing that magazine, but I was still keeping the sales numbers, and I was still researching into that. And then when I quit the day job to write novels and comics full time in 2007, I launched Comic-Con the very same week and continued to update it with new data while the new data came out. All of that collapsed after the pandemic. We actually know less about what comics are selling now than at any time in the history of the industry. And this is a problem
Yeah.
for the publishers now. It's been a problem for the collectors and the reader and for the retailers. It's a problem for the publishers too, because they can't actually illustrate how the business is doing. They can talk about how they might be doing, but there's no public information out there. But then again, it was anomalous that we had that level of detail for so many years. And of course, now we're in this era where streaming numbers, who really knows what anything is, what audience anything is reaching. And so, I'm not a survey research firm. I am an archivist. I collect what is available and what I find. And I've found a lot of stuff that's back in the 60s and 70s and 80s, that I have yet to actually get published, but it will be. And it is. I will say that one benefit, strangely, of this information going away, it has allowed me to have a very strong run of novels over the last few years, because I was not sitting in an airport trying to, get a spreadsheet to work, uh, to try to get the month's numbers online, because these things were so complicated. I mean, we had 500 comic books and 500 graphic novels that we were reporting on every month, and I was going in there and cleaning up the titles and making sure everything was capitalized properly and everything like that, and that would take about a week out of my month. And an interesting question would be, where would I be now, novel wise? How many more books would be out if I hadn't done all this? But at the same time, I think that work that I did prove useful for people, and it is going to bear some more fruit here this year, probably, if I can get the time to work out right.
Oh, fantastic. No, excellent. Like again, it's such a I know, as you were saying, nowadays overlooked resource, but it's so important
Yeah,
as well for that, particularly for the publishers,
yeah.
creators, 100%. Thank you so much for your time. I was really looking forward to having this conversation. I've totally enjoyed both Resurrection and Revolution as well. I hope there's more, whatever the next project is, you can definitely know I'll be on
Well,
board for that as well. And hopefully I'll catch you at a future convention or something. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
well, thank you. I appreciate it. Just did my first European conventions last year, so hopefully
Oh,
I'll
wonderful.
get.
Where did you go?
I did an event. I did a Star Wars event in France last April. Came back home for less than a week, and then went back to do Thessaloniki Comic Con in Greece. So
Oh, wow. Nice.
so
Nice.
that was something.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much and hope to talk to you again. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.